Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I am your host, the RJB0. So, there's been a lot of OCG news recently that I haven't really covered yet. I will be doing a lot more reviews on it later. And I am also beginning a new segment where I discuss decks that are relatively overlooked, that are actually very good in my opinion, or could be very good in the future. A segment that I intend to call Holy Nuts, and then whatever the deck is. So, in an effort to cover both of these things, welcome to Holy Nuts, Gravekeepers are good. So, Gravekeepers have always had a certain thing about them, where people have always feared them in some capacity or another. Whether it's because, mostly, it is because of this card, Necro Valley. But in general, you've got what is it? Royal Tribute. That's really freaking amazing, especially combined with Necro Valley. You've just got a ton of things in this deck that together make something that is kind of terrifying. It's got this nice stun aspect that you can use like Spy to summon Recruiter or Descendant from your deck, which you can then summon the other from your hand. Tribute the Descendant to tribute the Recruiter to use the Descendants effect. Then you can get a what's his futz, a Commandant from your deck, which you can use to get Necro Valley. Then you can go Royal Tribute, and there are just some crazy combos that this deck can do. And people have always generally feared this deck in some capacity or another. And in this particular format, Necro Valley is actually extremely good against the meta. The problem with it is that it has had very little protection against various decks that have a lot of field spell removal by way of, field spells and MST. However, Necro Valley now has some extra support that is coming out. First off, in the form of Graveekpers Shaman, who gains 200 defense for each Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard and negates all monster effects activated in the graveyard except Gravekeeper monsters. While Necro Valley is on the field, your opponent cannot activate field spell cards. Also, field spell cards on the field cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So, yeah. This card is... The fact that it's level 6 means it has a couple of issues. Well, it has one main issue, which is getting it on the board. What you can do, and this is something that I'm considering doing now that I am considering running Gravekeepers, is discard it to the graveyard and then use a card called what's it called? Rite of Spirit, which, even while Necro Valley on the board, is basically a trap version of Monster Reborn for Gravekeepers. So you could bring this back with Rite of Spirit, and then you've got a protected Necro Valley, and fun stuff ensues. So this card is actually pretty decent. If you can protect it, you've got a pretty hard lock on your opponent. The only way they can get rid of it is to get rid of this thing, and of course you've got means of protection, including the new toy that people are really talking about, which is Royal Tomb of Necro Valley, which is a counter trap card that says when a card effect is activated, if both Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper's monster are on the field, negate the activation, and if you do destroy that card, you can only activate one Royal Tomb of Necro Valley per turn. While this card looks amazing for Gravekeepers at face value, which it really is, don't get me wrong, the problem is, the major caveat with this card is that it can be used against Gravekeepers equally effectively. Because it only says on the field, so unless this wording gets changed in the side deck, like in Game 2, Gravekeepers are going to have to deal with a counter trap card that only requires them to, I don't know, have your best cards on the board. The only reason why this card isn't as useful for your opponent is because a lot of the time they're going to be trying to get rid of your Necro Valley and your Gravekeeper monster anyway, so this card won't help them as much, but all in all, I'd say that this card... all in all, I'd say that this card is a massive double-edged sword for the Gravekeeper deck. The card that isn't, however, is Shrine of Necro Valley, which says activate only if Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper's monster are on the field. Neither player can special summon monsters except Gravekeepers monsters. And if Necro Valley or a Gravekeepers monster on the field, or if Necro Valley is not on the field or a Gravekeepers monster isn't on the field, it gets destroyed. So basically, it's Vanity's Emptiness in continuous field spell form that doesn't affect you, which is pretty spectacular. Um, it's in my opinion, this is even better than Royal Tomb, mostly because it can't be used against you the way that Royal Tomb can. And this card is just ridiculous. It adds on to the stun factor of this deck. And if you have this card and Necro Valley and Shaman on the board, you basically win. Like, your opponent has to be able to, like, MST and then special summon a monster and then destroy your Shaman and then hit your Necro Valley. And the chances of their being able to do that without your hitting them with like a warning or a Royal Tomb or a Bottomless is pretty slim. So in my opinion, this card is even better than Royal Tomb. It's probably a 2 of, if not a 3 of. It's just way good. I'm totally enamored by this card. And the other fun thing about Gravekeepers Shaman is that it can be summoned via Apostle, which when it's destroyed by battle with your opponent's attacking monster and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Gravekeeper monster from your deck in face-down defense position. One of the deals with that is that it can summon Spy, which is pretty good. It can tutor out a Spy, which is nice, but it can also special summon your Shaman. The other thing about Spy is, I believe, if I am not incorrect, that it can also summon a Shaman. So there are a number of ways of special summoning Shaman, including the new Apostle. Apostle is okay. I think Mega Capital G got it right when he said, like, it's a 1 of. It's just an extra tutor for the deck. It adds a little bit of consistency. Allows you to get your Spy on the board a little quicker. But other than that, it's eh. The card that I think that people are really miscalculating is Ambusher. The one thing that a Gravekeeper deck has over another deck attempting to use Royal Tomb of Necro Valley is the fact that with Gravekeeper's Ambusher, we can recycle Royal Tomb of Necro Valley. So once we've used it, we can just get it back to our hand. We can just keep abusing it turn after turn, which is really nice. And this card can also, this is one of the cards that might influence me toward only running 2 Shrine of Necro Valley. This card could also add Shrine of Necro Valley to your hand. So if you set it and your opponent attacks it, and it gets flipped face up, you banish a monster from your opponent's graveyard and then add like a Royal Tomb or a Shrine to your hand. The other thing about this card, like, it's not going to be something that you're going to expect to hit the board, stay on the board, get its effect, and then be able to attack. It's not one of those. But you can either attack with this card or get its effect, and its attack points are pretty substantial. Under Necro Valley, this card gets up to 2,200, which is pretty sizable. I'd say that I would run probably at least one of this card. I might side a second one against against my opponent game 2 because I know that they're probably going to side Royal Tomb against me, which will be mildly obnoxious. So Gravekeepers are going to end up being one of those decks that has a spectacular game 1. You're going to have to fight pretty hard game 1 and game 2, but as long as you play your cards right, kind of literally, you should be able to keep the hard lock on your opponent and just dominate hard. So that's what I think of Gravekeepers. I think that they're actually going to be very good. I think Royal Tomb of Necro Valley is getting a lot more hype than it should be, since it is just a colossal double-edged sword. But other than that, I think Shrine and Shaman and even Ambusher are very, very good cards that we should be looking out for in the future. Meanwhile, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And talk to me. What do you guys think about the new Gravekeeper support? Do you think Gravekeepers are going to be good once Legacy of the Valiant comes out? And then, of course, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! News, analysis, and general shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.